Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, reacting to the Toronto Raptors 107-103 win against the Miami Heat. Ryker, the second game in the bubble, not as crisp as the nice exciting win we had against the Lakers, but still, the Miami Heat, a very solid team, a win nonetheless.
A win, not pretty. Not pretty. There was only one good stretch of basketball, I'd argue, in that whole game, and that was the opening of the third quarter until about 6 minutes in. And you know what? To be fair, those last two possessions on defense when it really mattered, that it goes to show. I don't know if the Heat fumbled it and they really weren't playing up to snuff, or if the Raptors defense just completely clamped them down. I'd lean towards the latter, but Ben, they got the win, and that's what matters.
Yeah, the boys came out, and I think both teams had a really strong defensive outings, but as we've seen, a common theme in a lot of these games, a lot of guys trying to get back into rhythm, particularly with finishing. The jump shooting for a lot of guys in the bubble and watching a lot of games seemed to be good, but the tight and close finishes have just been tough seemingly for everyone returning to the bubble. So that's a common theme and was definitely the case tonight. But one guy that had it going the entire game, Fred VanVleet, 36 points. I believe that's a career high, Ryker. 4 assists, 5 rebounds. He won us this basketball game today.
Oh, he absolutely did. You look at the box score, Ben, not a lot of points from any other player on the Raptors team. And there was a little bit of finger pointing towards the bench, but realistically, we've slipped into a 7-man rotation. All the back and forths that we've had about who is going to be that eighth person. We just cut the eighth person altogether.
That ninth guy.
Yeah, but the offense came from Fred VanVleet today, and Pascal Siakam I thought could have been a little more dominant in the post, and Serge Ibaka had some good positioning there at the end, but you hit it on the head, Ben. This game would not have been won without Fred VanVleet being so reliable from the perimeter, and which has not been very reliable for him since coming to the bubble. So tonight was a very good outing for steady Freddie.
Yeah, for sure. We've been talking about the last podcast, whether it was breaking down the scrimmages or obviously the main game against the Lakers. Fred VanVleet sort of struggled to get his consistency going. He did hit a few threes against the Lakers, which was a good sight to see, but yeah, it wasn't, and even not just the shooting, but his finishing as well. He tended to just throw himself into the defense and get blocked a lot and then finish some of the open layups. But tonight was finishing around the rim, was really crafty with those takes, as well as obviously knocking down the threes. Hit 7 threes tonight, 7 of 12 shooting from the three-point line. A few of them were reminiscent of the NBA Finals, Ryker, where he had a couple defenders on him and just shook them loose, had the step-backs going. But a really positive sign to see Fred VanVleet get his game going, have a big night. So, you know, we weren't expecting Fred VanVleet to keep up that slump, but really good to see him break out of it.
Yeah, and in the same way, we don't expect Fred to have a 36-point output every time he laces them up, but it's certainly good that if Kyle Lowry is, and I don't think it was any lack of his trying. I thought that both guards were really aggressive. There were a few calls that didn't go their way and a bit of foul trouble, but it's nice that if we have two spectacular guards on this Toronto Raptors team, and really either or can carry the burden of taking those big shots down the stretch and throughout the game. And if both of them are clicking at the same time, then this would have been a 20 or 30-point victory, no doubt in my mind, Ben.
Yeah, for sure. The Raptors defense has just been so strong, even in the scrimmages and obviously against the games in the Lakers. Once the offense gets on full gear and we see the bench sort of pick it up, especially, you know, that's been the hottest debate over this 3-month break is TD, Matt Thomas, Rondé, even Chris Boucher. Who will get those minutes? Who will be the 8th, 9th men? And no one's really stepped up as of, you know, just yet in these real expedition games. Obviously, TD was great in those scrimmages, but once we get a guy like that going, a guy like Norm finishing around the rim well again because he's getting those good shots. Ibaka had a stronger game tonight. We'll get to him after. But once we get the bench going, paired along with the starters, it'll be a really, really great sight to see. But another guy that had a solid outing tonight is Pascal Siakam. 22 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. As we brought up in the scrimmages, seeing Pascal knock down his long-range jumpers is always a positive sight to see. Hit 4 of 7 from the three-point line today. But as you kind of alluded to earlier, didn't really take advantage in the post when he had smaller guys on him. Obviously, the Heat ran a sort of zone defense, which made it a little bit weird for him, but you'd like to see Siakam make tougher takes against when guys like Duncan Robinson and stuff are guarding him.
Well, their zone I don't think affected his game that much because he scored almost exclusively from the perimeter and from mid-range pull-ups. And that is the more difficult part of his game, or the more inconsistent part of his game. And when we were talking a little bit, we said, well, if Bam Adebayo is guarding Pascal Siakam, that's traditionally one of the toughest matchups that he's had to face this season in trying to get points in the paint. But that wasn't the case tonight, because like you said, it was all these guys that they don't really have that same defensive ability, the strength or the quickness to keep up with Pascal. Yeah, they threw a little bit of doubles at him when he got deep position, but I think that his ability to spin and create shots with a few pump fakes, he could have been more assertive this game, and I guess lucky thing we didn't really need him to, but and I'm going to take some flack for this, Ben, and you can defend them. We were having this conversation before it started, but I don't have a lot of respect, even though the Heat are technically a good defensive team. The matchups that they were throwing at the Toronto Raptors tonight for all rotations, I thought, even though they were playing this sort of pseudo zone, I thought that the Raptors offensively were much better than what they were throwing at them defensively, and it was still a much closer margin than you'd expect.
Yeah, you've when we talked sort of before the podcast, you were kind of disappointed with how the Heat played. I thought the Heat's defense was really strong tonight. I thought their schemes were really good. Obviously, Kendrick Nunn is a guy who really struggled in the game, and he's in the game against the Raptors, but he's one of those guys that's in contention for an all-defensive team. Jay Crowder's known as a wing defender. Jimmy Butler, Adebayo, nothing has to be said about them. But I think I agree with you in the sense of guys like Duncan Robinson, Harrow out there. Iguodala has gotten older, even though he's known as a defender. Dragic's a little pest, but not a guy that you'd expect to be a threatening player when you're matched up against him on terms of when he's on defense. But
and Kelly Olynyk, for God's sake, Ben.
Yeah. No, well, Kelly's a sizable guy. He's athletic. He's mobile enough. I wouldn't consider him super athletic in terms of jumping out the building.
His post defense or Ibaka's post offense?
Well, going up against a big guy, it's always a little bit tough, especially when there's help and all that sort of stuff. But I think Serge had a solid outing tonight when he was matched up against Olynyk. He had 15 points, 6 rebounds. I think the Raptors did solid enough. I think our biggest issue on offense right now is getting just a bit more consistency out of everyone, especially finishing around the rim. You can kind of expect the threes to go back and forth for different players, as it always is the case with any team, but you want to see guys like Siakam, OG, especially Norman too, where he gets to the rim so well. Rondé, when he's underneath the rim, to not pass it to the other team, right? Seeing those guys, and Ibaka obviously, who had a solid game in Gasol, but seeing those guys finish well and take advantage of their opportunities, you want to see that be more of a positive. But I think we got the right shots against the Heat. They just played a solid amount of defense.
But that wasn't the case, Ben. That wasn't the case. That's the reason that I'm not on the hype train for this victory, and I don't think it's going to be a recurring problem. But the Raptors, they pulled out this win by the hair on their teeth. And it really shouldn't have been the case.
The hair on their teeth.
Yeah, exactly. Like, non-existent. Like, it's, I don't know what the actual expression is. You get the point. They had 21 turnovers this game, right? They had to rely on Fred VanVleet making 7 3-pointers, right? Their defense, the rotations were fantastic, actually. On defense, they played really good. But they had the 15-point, I think it might have even been up to 16 or 17 points lead in that third quarter, and it just slowly slipped down because they didn't keep their foot on the gas, and they easily could have. That's the reason that I'm being a little bit critical here, Ben, is because that opening to the half that I watched led me to believe that this should be a team that the Raptors beat handily. And I don't think that the Raptors are going to have 21 turnovers night in and night out. And a lot of them were dead ball turnovers. They're not, they're bad passes. Marc Gasol was throwing passes from the ground, falling around. Kyle Lowry throwing passes when Ibaka wasn't even in position. Like, stuff like that. I apologize to the Heat for all they're capable of doing, but I'm not going to give credit to their defense for Lowry just throwing the ball to an empty space. You know what I mean, Ben?
Yeah. No, that's definitely fair, and the Raptors didn't look that polished tonight, clearly, especially when you compare it to our past game against the Lakers, but I think that's a positive, though, because the Heat are a good team. They're third, or are they third in the Eastern Conference?
They should be fourth.
They're fourth, sorry. The Celtics are third, but they're a really solid team, obviously. They have a lot of great players, and the fact that the Raptors weren't polished, things weren't going as well, and they still pulled out the W, that was a great thing to see.
Exactly.
I think we've got through all the players. Lowry had another solid night, 14 points. 8 rebounds, 5 assists. Didn't get his game going that much, as compared to the last game. Gasol, OG didn't really go at them on offense, nor missed a few shots around the rim. Is there anything you want to break down further before we bring into the segments?
No, we can bring into the segment, but I agree. I agree with your point, Ben. I think it ultimately is a positive thing to have a game that really wasn't polished, like you said. It wasn't technically sound from start to finish, and to still pull out a victory against a team that people are saying could contend with the Bucks to win that series and go to the Eastern Conference Finals. That could be a championship contender, maybe. I don't really have them going that far, but they're in that conversation. And for the Raptors to still win, despite some obvious shortfalls in this game, which they can improve upon, is a really good thing.
Yeah, I guess before we swing in, and this is a little sidetrack, but do you think this team has any chance of beating the Bucks after sort of watching them lose to the Rockets and all that? Do you think the Heat have any chance of beating the Bucks in the second round?
Well, it's been a really eye-opening stretch of games. We have the Raptors beat the Lakers and hold them under 100 points, and we have the Bucks almost lose against the Celtics with an arguable foul call on Marcus Smart. That could have been a charge. Yeah, that would have had Giannis out of the game. And then we have the Bucks, which that should have been an easy win for the Bucks. Their tallest player, the Houston's tallest player on the court, is 6'7", and we basically, I think Giannis and Brook Lopez shot over 50%. Just give it to them, feed it to them all game long down the post, but they died by their willingness to give up that 3-point shot, and I think it's exposed some of these teams. And the Raptors have done really well, and the Heat, they've shown that they're a good defensive team. So I think it is pretty wide open for anybody to come in. And to answer your question specifically, I think the Heat do have a chance, right? You got to hit your threes, and they have 3-point shooters on their team, and you got to slow down Giannis, and they have a good defender in Bam Adebayo.
Yeah, no, I think I'm in agreement with you too, especially watching that Rockets game. I'm watching breakdowns of the Bucks defense. Their strategy is to give up 3-point shooting, and the Heat got a lot of good shooters, man. They have a lot of solid shooters around the lane, especially when they put out certain lineups. And I don't know. I'm not picking them to beat them, but I would not be surprised if that were the case. But let us know in the comment section below. It's obviously not a Raptors topic, but if we do end up beating the Celtics, that'll likely be the matchup we face in the Eastern Conference Finals. So definitely a thing to keep an eye out on. But Ryker, lots of plays tonight. Lots of plays that could potentially be the spicy P-lay of the day. Do you have one in mind, Ryker?
Yeah, you can bring it all the way to the first quarter. Norman Powell had a baseline drive, and I thought he'd be contested by, I think, Jay Crowder, but rises up and slammed home a nasty slam dunk. And there was also a good connection, I think, between Norm and Pascal. There was a good fast break that ended in a dunk as well, Ben. I'm not sure if you have something in mind.
Yeah, to build off that, one thing about Norman Powell, obviously missed a couple layups tonight. Sometimes you just wish he'd dunk it every time because he got the ups. He's there. He's right? He's in the air. He's above the rim. You just want him to throw it down when those finger rolls aren't going down. But I'm sure Norm's finishing will be fine. He was absolute monster all season. But that one, and obviously I want to throw a little Fred VanVleet step back those shots he was hitting. That and one he had where he drove through 2 defenders. I think Jay Crowder hacked him, and then Fred did a little hot sauce jelly layup on the left side. So that was pretty cool to see. So lots of positive, exciting plays from this one, but not all plays can be the spicy P-lay of the day, and some just make you say, oh, jeez. Ryker, you have an OG's play in mind?
Yeah, well, don't always necessarily have to agree with the commentators, but tonight Matty D and Leo were spot on. There was a possession where Dragic, he stuck his hand out and tripped OG. Very intentional looking, not with malice, but he stuck his arm out there to grab his leg and pull him down. They called that a common foul because, quote, there was no injury. So apparently you need to get injured in order for there to be a flagrant. And then they called what seemed like just a classic swipe for the ball, which happened to just graze Kyle Lowry's eye. They called that one a flagrant, I guess, because Kyle Lowry went down clutching his eye, and that constitutes an injury. So I don't know. To me, it should have been switched in what was a flagrant and what's not. To me, a flagrant should be, it has the possibility to cause harm, or it's above and beyond what a normal act would be. I think they had it wrong tonight, the refs, but I had a few complaints about the refs, man.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And honestly, I think they gave the flagrant on Kelly Olynyk at that point because they knew they kind of messed up the other one. That's just my sort of theory. But yeah, completely agree with you on those. And I have another little tiny one when Kyle Lowry threw that behind the back pass to 7 feet away from Marc Gasol when we were sort of making a run in that fourth quarter. That was a tough thing to see. Made me say, oh geez. But finally, the infamous, the one, the only DeMarre Carroll Gold Star Award. Riker, I'll leave it to you.
Are you expecting me to say something in particular, Ben?
Yeah.
Really? Oh.
Do you have one in mind?
I didn't have something in mind, but now you're putting the pressure on me that I should know something. It's like a secret that I should know, but I don't.
Honestly, I'm looking at the game, and he didn't get that many minutes, but Terrence Davis, I'm waiting for this man to just explode. And he only got a few minutes out there, so it's tough to give him the DeMarre Carroll Gold Star Award, but everyone was just sort of met tonight. Not super bad, but TD, I want to see this man be confident. We saw it in the scrimmages. I want to see him with the ball, ready to shoot jumpers, ready to go out there, explode, and he just really hasn't had it in these past 2 games, Riker.
Well, you know what? This is real basketball. The intensity of these games, I think, rivals what we're going to see in the playoffs. And there's no home court advantage anymore, so it's very equal playing field. And maybe some of the noises and all the stuff that's going on the screens, I don't know how much that registers or resonates for the players while they're out there. But he's a rookie, Ben, and as high as we've been on him and his potential, you do need to cut some slack that it's tried and true, Ben. Veterans, the experience in the playoffs, and this is, to me, I consider this playoff-like basketball is always important, right? And that's the reason that I think that the Heat aren't as, they don't have that same ability to win like the Raptors do because they need to rely on 2 rookies or 2 first years in their starting lineup. Is Duncan Robinson a first year?
He's basically a first year. He barely played in last season.
Okay, so a rookie and a sophomore, I guess. And then Harrow, he's a significant minutes guy. And that's why I think you need to have those veteran players. And that's why OG is coming alive this year. And Fred VanVleet can make 36 points in a game because these guys have championship experience. So Terrence Davis, his time will come. We'd like for him to have some output, but I wouldn't be too hard on him, Ben.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's just when he teases us with those monstrous performances, those dunks, those step back threes, and then we sort of get the duds. But it is what it is. And I guess before we send it off, and the things brought up about TD, and obviously Matt Thomas is another one of those rookie guys. Who do you see being the 8th man on this team? Because we obviously saw Norm off the bench. Ibaka and Norm are locks. They obviously got close to 30 minutes per game tonight, along with the starters. But Rondé got 11 minutes. Boucher hasn't seen the floor yet. Do you see any of those guys getting in, or maybe a deeper bench guy like Malcolm Miller, who's been on the squad for a long time? God forbid Stanley Johnson gets another crack at it. Who do you see? Who do you see really getting those minutes?
Let me throw it back to you to close it off. Could you see the Raptors play a 7-man rotation to finish off the season and the playoffs?
I think that would be tough. I think that's going to be too little. You're going to just overexert your guys, especially where the playoffs, a lot of these games, not back-to-back, but one game in between. We're usually in the playoffs. There's 2 games in between the really big ones. So I think we're going to have at least one guy to be able to rely upon on. And, Rondé is probably the most veteran, the most tested guy for off this bench when you're not including Norm or Serge Ibaka, but he can't shoot the 3. Boucher is a guy that hasn't really been able to shoot the 3 recently, but in theory he's a decent shooter. I don't know what to really think at this point. We could probably make a whole video on this.
Probably could, Ben. I think that we might actually end up seeing a little bit more 7-man rotations unless the Raptors can keep a firmer handle on the game from start to finish. I think when the game gets tight, we're sticking to our core guys, and Ibaka and Norm, they fit the bill, and the rest of the team, I don't know. It's tough. It's a tough one.
It's very tough. Well, we'll probably make a video on that soon if this keeps up. But you're the best for making it this far. Check out the Twitter, the Instagram, all that cool stuff. The Twitter's back going for during these game segments, so definitely have an eye out over there when the games are happening. Obviously, the Instagram has been popping for the past month or so definitely check that out. Yeah, you're the best. Thanks for making this far. Riker, any last words?
Who are we playing next, man?
Orlando on Wednesday, I believe.
Another W.
The Florida back-to-back, the home court magic.
We'll take that. That's, and unfortunately, that's the first round preview, isn't it?
Likely.
Oh,
Likely. We don't really know what's going to
boring.
happen between the Nets, Wizards, and the Magic, but they just lost Jonathan Isaac, which is a massive blow to them. Obviously, they thought he was going to be the Siakam stopper last year, but
Probably karma.
I don't know. We'll end it on that note.
That's it. Cheers.